I can reference back to that point where 2 years into my career, I had some success, but I started seeing that's not fulfilling me. And I can look 10, 20, and 30 years ahead and see other people like me that they're not fulfilled and they're still seeking more to find that. So when I decided I will walk away, that gave me the peace to say, okay, everything after this is kind of bonus. So let me enjoy it, but also be willing to step away. And
welcome to the Superhuman Life. I'm your host, Frank Rich, and this is the only podcast in the world dedicated to helping men break free from the shackles of addiction through the power of faith and fitness. It is our goal with every episode to help you take back control and rebuild your body, mind, and spirit. And we do so by bringing you real and raw conversations with people just like you, aiming to find their place in this world while dealing with the everyday struggles and battles that we all face. Now, it is my belief that we were all created for a specific purpose. And if we can harness that belief or faith, then take control of our mind and body or fitness, then we can ultimately create the life that we've always dreamed about, our own superhuman life. I want to let you know how grateful and blessed I am to have you here with me today. Let's get on to today's show.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing and very exciting episode of the Superhuman Life. As always, I am your host, Frank Rich. And guys, I just want to tell you once again how incredibly grateful I am to have every single one of you here with me today. So before I get into today's intro, guys, let me just remind you with a few quick house cleaning items. As we've been sharing with you here over the last few weeks, one of our big focuses on 2021 with the Superhuman Life podcast and with our entire mission here, both in the podcast and with Rebuild Recovery, is upping the ante, is upping our production on the video side of things. So a lot of you guys are now finding us on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you are notified every single time a new video is released. And for you guys that are only on the audio side, maybe check us out on the video and let me know what your thoughts are. Are you liking the style of how we're putting these videos together? We're doing this obviously to continue to reach more people, much wider audience, and have a greater impact on the world. So curious what your thoughts are on the videos, and if you guys are enjoying the level of production that we're bringing to the show. But guys, I got to tell you, keeping consistent with the last couple episodes here, we're really upping the ante on the guests we're bringing on. Just a higher level caliber of an individual, higher level caliber of stories, higher level caliber of impact into your life. And that's really what today's episode is all about. It's about sharing truly a remarkable story of an individual, what he's done to get to where he's at today. And hopefully we can provide you with some insight, maybe some tactics and strategies to help you in finding those answers. If you got questions about what is God's plan for me, do I need to keep moving down this path? Do I need to have faith that I'm moving in the right direction? All of that is going to be, just filtered throughout today's conversation and today's message. So let me get in introducing our guest. Our guest is none other than Nate Burkhalter. Nate Burkhalter. Nate is an American Ninja Warrior. He's the third or fourth competitor of the American Ninja Warrior show that we've had on the guest. And like I told Nate in the early introduction when he and I start talking, I believe he's gone on further than any of our previous guests. Now, Nate is also the first world champion of the Exatlón, which is a Latin American version of the American Ninja Warrior. And it's kind of a hybrid. There's a reality TV component to it. And Nate and I talk a little bit about what brought him to that show, how he was able to stay true to himself. So what you guys will find in this story is Nate is a strong man of God. He puts his faith first and foremost before anything. Now, that wasn't always the case, and we really unpack that. Nate was born or grew up a pastor's child. I believe he used the term PC, which was new for me. But how was he able to hold on to his faith in those early years? And he admits that there was a time in his life where he went astray, but he came back and Nate has an incredible story of just trusting his faith, trusting in God to provide him with the answers. And guys, this is really a jam-packed, powerful conversation. So without further ado, guys, I want to get into today's conversation with the global champion, the American Ninja Warrior, the man of God, No Limits Nate. Guys, hope you guys enjoy this one. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and written review. But let's get on with today's conversation with the American Ninja Warrior, Nate Burkhalter. All right, Mr. No Limits, Nate, my brother, welcome to the Superhuman Life.
Thank you so much, Frank. I'm honored. I'm excited to be a part of this. So let's
Dude,
get it rocking.
I am too, man. We had to jump through some hurdles to make this thing happen, but we are here. We got some energy. We got some excitement. It's early morning there. It's 9 a.m. in Houston, Texas, correct?
That's right. In H-Town. I just got back in from San Diego. Got in last night about 1 a.m. I was up this morning at 5 a.m. for another meeting. So I'm charged up, bro. I've had like 3 cups of coffee.
Let's go. What took you out to San Diego?
I went and met up with Steve Weatherford, who you guys have had, or you've had on your show before. Some of your audience may know him. Super Bowl champ, one of the only guys to beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's right.
Part of the Giants, and I'm part of his mastermind group, his life coaching group, and he had an Upgrade Your Human experience. So we did some hiking, Wim Hof breathing, cold plunge, and then got into some business and leadership talks. It was a good little event. Yeah,
man, I love that. Steve is a powerful dude, man. He's coming here to Tampa. We were talking about that, beforehand. But yeah, Steve was just on a few episodes ago. So all the listeners out there know Steve, know the impact and influence he has had on my life. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that kind of Upgrade Your Event thing, because I know he's got you guys cold plunging and breathing. This is all stuff that I've shared, is a massive part of my life. I think we're going on, I don't know the amount of days, but we're almost 18 months now of cold showers every single morning. So I have a sauna here. I have a sauna here at my house. So it's a part of my morning routine. I'll take Bentley. We do our 30-minute walk in the morning, jump right in. So when we leave, I turn the sauna on. So by the time I get back, it's heated up. Jump right in the sauna, 30 minutes, and then immediately into the cold shower. So that has changed my life in so many ways. What's been your experience with some of these, kind of biohacks and, these type of events? Like, what have you learned about yourself in really exposing yourself to difficult things every single day?
Man, that's cool that you've got that setup going. I love that. And my roommate's dog's name is Bentley. So we got some common ground there.
Yeah.
But, I think back in 2015, 2016, I'd moved to Africa in 2016, really looking to take a step up in my Ninja Warrior training and progress and breakthrough. And I was following a lot of Lewis Howes content, and then found a few other guys that got more into biohacking. So I really tapped into cold therapy, cold plunge, Wim Hof, sauna, cycling that hot and cold side of things. And then I moved to Norway. So I got a chance to apply some of the cold therapy training I've been doing. I went up to the North Pole in a place called Svalbard, as far north as you can get.
Okay.
In Scandinavia. And I did a cold plunge dip over there, cut through some ice, and dove in. Felt like I was prepared, but helping tap into the neurochemistry of your mind, overcoming some of those things that are scary, that are challenging. I've definitely seen the potential unlocked more so in my mind and handling the pressure that comes from Ninja Warrior, a one and done mentality. It's like you walk up as a kicker and it's like you make this kick and you win, you miss it, you lose. And it's helping me to handle pressure and things that feel like outside of my control. I can dial that in because now I can handle sitting into an ice tub and just calming my mind and keeping myself present. So it's been helpful, powerful.
No, it's powerful, man. I love that you talked about the neurochemistry side of things. I mean, we'll jump in here, down the road a little bit about, the work that we do. We deal heavily in neuroscience here, in our coaching program, helping men really, break these chains of their addiction. So I love that. I love that part. And then, I just had Dave Asprey on. He'll actually be dropping the episode before yours. Massive biohacker dude. I mean, he invented the term, 20 plus years ago. In doing that, we kind of started in a different place than where I wanted to, but you talked about traveling to Africa and then you spent some time in the North Pole. I know this is a massive part of your story, is this kind of traveling and seeing the world. And you talked about the American Ninja Warrior as well. I believe you're the third, maybe fourth. I know for a fact, Anthony Trucks and Danny Vega. I can't remember if somebody else in those early episodes was an American Ninja Warrior competitor as well. You've taken these competitions far beyond what these guys are doing. And we're going to get into this Exatlón experience that you had, but let's go back kind of to a little bit of the beginning, the early years of Nate, and let's see if we can kind of take people on a journey here with, the engineering and how you began to travel. And then how'd you end up, really leaving your corporate world job and getting into these competitions and becoming more of an influencer and brand. So I know there's not a direct question there. It's more, kind of take us to maybe a good starting point in your life story? You know, if it's teenage Nate, if it's younger Nate, I'll let you kind of decide where's the best place to really kick people off here.
Right on. Well, first off, man, I'm honored to be a part of this. Looking forward to connecting to your audience. I appreciate what you're doing and how you're impacting and changing lives, and that resonates with me. So I'm stoked to join in with this. And, you know, diving back into maybe childhood Nate, I was a pretty energetic, aggressive kid. And then as I rolled into my 10, 11-year-old self, we moved from where I was in Memphis, Tennessee, down to Louisiana. My dad was a pastor, so I was a PK. And small town place, I was an outsider at that point, and I lost some of my confidence because I came into a new space and didn't really feel included. As I was developing some friends and trying to gain some confidence, you know, I think that's the time when young men start really developing confidence in themselves. Like they start taking a path towards sports. But for me, I got kind of hit in that place of losing some of that confidence. And I also got introduced to porn through a Playboy magazine in, like, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade. Yeah. I remember being like, what is this? I'm not really interested, but also I'm trying to fit in and be included. So I accepted that invitation of finding out what this stuff is about. And as I rolled into 3 years later, moved again to South Louisiana, was homeschooled for a bit. So still kind of unplugged. And I'm trying to find myself athletically, because as a young man, like I want to compete and move around and play. Found myself pretty athletic, but also still lacking confidence in, can I do this? And I was a skinny, small kid. When I graduated high school, for reference, I was 6 foot tall, but 130 pounds. So pretty lean. Yeah. But going into more like 9th grade, homeschooling, and wanting to be part of a sports program, but didn't have one I could play. Eventually in 10th grade, I went back to public school. I was too small to play football, too far behind to play baseball, and too short and too white to play basketball. So I tried to jump into, like, what can I do? So I got on the tennis team, which everybody in South Louisiana was like, gay. Like, if you don't play football, you're not a man. If you play anything else, then it doesn't count. So I found this struggle of trying to develop confidence in who I was. And the only thing I kind of excelled at in this small-minded South Louisiana place was like school and math and science, which wasn't really my passion, but it was a ability and opportunity. And I've been working on farms. I've been working in construction. I'd fix my own cars. Like, we didn't have much money. So once I bought a vehicle, I learned to upgrade it myself. So I developed some intuition, and that later in life kind of led me towards a path towards engineering, which felt safe, but it wasn't where my heart was. And as I'm paralleling this struggle of not having a lot of confidence and not having a lot of friends and getting into a high school, starting in 10th grade and looking like I was 12 years old and maybe 115 pounds, it was a journey of finding confidence, and then realizing, you know, a lot of your topics are on porn, and porn became a hook for me, an outlet for me, because once I hit puberty and had a lot of sexual drive and hormones, I'm like, how do I handle this outlet? And then as I didn't have friendships and engagement and confidence in myself, I was too scared to approach women in a lot of ways, or at least develop good friendships or healthy relationships. So it's like porn became an outlet for me to cope, or to feel more validated or more masculine. And that's a trigger, and that's a reminder for me, just looking back and where that wound started early on in life. And I think as a man, we don't always realize the source of our struggle or of our pain or our frustration, but the enemy hits us pretty hard early on in life before we have defenses up and before we have awareness of what's going on. So, you know, long story short, I had drive, I had excitement. As kids, you know, we're all passionate, but then slowly life kind of wears us down and makes us lose direction or play it safe. And I learned to play it safe. And so the reason that's relevant is because through some of those fears I had, I was too scared to try out for football. I was too scared to go for things. I was too scared to ask the girl out. When I got older, I was like, I'm tired of being in places of playing it safe. I'm tired of being half in. I want to be the man who's passionate. You know, my name's Nate. And so I grab hold of the word passion, Nate, because it resonates in my spirit. There's times when I know I've come alive and I can see glimpses. There's got to be so much more to life than what I'm living. I'm just playing it safe because I'm afraid of the fear of failure, of rejection, of not being enough. And as I progressed through this journey of self-realization and kind of becoming a PK that did the things I was supposed to do, but my heart wasn't in it. And then when I got into college, I was like, man, it's time for me to explore life a little bit and see what that's about. Went off in a little bit more of a not crazy wild streak, but I had some fun. And I'm thankful for that season because it taught me to be free, to find myself, and know that God can use whatever path any of us have journeyed on to bring us back to redemption and wholeness. And now I'm living from a place of abundance and excitement Like you mentioned, I've gone from a successful corporate career of sorts to moving into having no idea what I'm doing, jumping out in faith, and then really breaking through in athletics and becoming a professional athlete and winning a show through that. So grab something out of there that's going to be relevant to what you're thinking.
There's so much that we could really unpack there. I appreciate you for just sharing all of that. Just a few things that really jumped out to me. First of all, I mean, yeah, you were 10 with that exposure, to pornography. I mean, this is obviously something we hear all the time here on this show and really, in the work that I do daily. For me, it was way younger than that. It was somewhere between 6 and 7. And It wasn't a Playboy. It was the Hustler-esque kind of things. I think you and I are right around the same age. I'm 37 and I think you're right around
34, 35 this month. So yeah.
So, we didn't have what, the kids today, like they have Instagram and I mean, they're literally from the age of 7, they're walking around with really an endless supply of porn. So, I try to bring a lot of awareness to parents and stuff like that. But some of the things you said were like your kind of insecurity in and around women. We understand so much from the neuroscience field now. We've had Dr. Trish on here multiple times, how the second time of literally consuming it begins to change the wiring in neurochemistry of your brain. So here you are, this like young little, innocent child. Your kind of first impression of women is like in this kind of exposed, objectifying type of nature. So now your brain is wired like, oh, women are meant for that. So when I see them in real life, I'm uncertain and insecure about how to approach them. That was one of the things that really kind of jumped out. And then you had to work through the trauma. You had to work through kind of some of that early on, difficulties around how it was making you feel. We know from a neuroscience field as well, like you need to actually get to the root of your addiction to actually break free. You can try to do all the rewiring, all the rebooting process, but if you don't understand the underlying cause of this from the beginning, you'll never fully break free there. So that's a lot of what we do here with our work as well. I think I want to kind of go, so we had Nate here, this high school kid, 130 pounds, 6 foot, not really the greatest athlete, too small for the football team, not advanced enough for baseball. So he chooses softball. How do we go from there?
Tennis, not softball.
Tennis. I'm sorry. Softball would have been way worse.
Everyone's like, how did you do that? Is this
why is that dude playing the girls thing over there, which we know happens these days, but that's a whole different conversation. Right. We're not going to get into that here today. So how do we go from, this tennis star to American Ninja Warrior, like high level competitor? Because you weren't just like on the TV show, you actually like excelled and had some small little victories. Now you weren't the world championship there. So what was that kind of progression through your 20s? How did you, obviously there's going to be some advanced training, when did that kind of make its way? We have a massive fitness audience that listens to the show. So I think we can dive into a little bit of the training stuff that took you from 130 pounds at 6 foot to now world champion of Exatlón, but also the American Ninja Warrior stuff as well. So did I give you a clear enough question there?
I'm tracking with you. I got a good answer for you. So, some of the mindsets I had to develop when I rolled into college, I got tired. I got sick and tired of being what I was. I was small, skinny. I was afraid to really push it and see what I could become because like, what if it wasn't enough? But I decided, man, let me get myself around some people who are doing things well, let me look at a guy that I'm impressed with in his life. Steve Weatherford is an example. Like, wow, he motivates me. Let me look at Arnold. Let me look at a few others. So I just grabbed a few people that motivated me both in my sphere and also that I saw on TV, on the internet. So I get to college, dude, I just started doubling down on food and lifting heavy, which I'd never done either of the two. And I put on about 60 pounds in my first 6 months. And I went from 130, 135 up to 190. Got some friends that were on the football team. And I'd always wanted to play football. I was just too small and too insecure. And I was like, man, what would it take for me to walk onto this football team? Because I had athleticism and I didn't fully know it, but I started seeing that as I played flag football and then got around some guys on the actual team at Louisiana Tech University. Okay. And they're like, man, you're running with us. You got a chance here. So that kind of got me excited. So I doubled down on training, got around a little bit more of them, got up to 195, ran a 4.6 40, had pretty good hops, could dunk a basketball. And that all developed by my sophomore year in college. So I start making the rounds in the process to walk onto the football team my sophomore year, 2007. And as I'm progressing through that and looking like I have a good chance to not only get on the team, but maybe play by my senior year, which is a stretch, but still exciting, I get this crazy freak accident burn injury that takes me out, severe second and third degree burns on my legs, thigh down. Thankfully, it wasn't any higher because I'd burned my nuts off. But that takes me out. I'm in the ICU burn unit for a month. I can't walk. There was a chance that I could have died. The hole that I fell into, that's a whole different story, but that I fell into was 8 feet deep. And so had I sunk all the way in, I would have died from a boiling pit of water that was like a pie crust on the ground. And I'm walking across and didn't see it. Separate story, but what that did was it suspended my ability to play football and pursue that athletic dream. That's relevant to your audience and athletes, because I never became a high-level athlete until really 25 years old, whereas most people are starting in their teens and then building that up, and they're plateauing at 25. I'm almost 35 now, and I would say I'm more in that plateau range. I'm really hitting a stride, and so it's never too late. And as I lost that opportunity to play football, and then a year later, I'd physically recovered, but I decided it's not worth me doubling back in to go try to play this football side of things when I have a potential and promising engineering career developing. So let me play the smart move. Let me move on to engineering as my future source of career and income. And I kind of put the dreams of athleticism on the back burner. I kept working out, but I didn't really know much about nutrition. So I slowly gained weight and just lifted heavy, but I didn't do any sprints or cardio. Moving into graduating, getting a job in Houston, high performance engineering company, like was the Fortune #1 company at the time. I was kind of excited to have a good shot at that and got it open some cool doors. Come to Houston, that led to fun, adventurous lifestyles and roaming the world to some degree. But as I found promise and success there, I was so frustrated with not being able to develop as an athlete and really not having any tools from where I came from to understand how to better my health, my mindset. And I kind of came to a crash of like, I'm doing all these things in life that the world tells me is how you find success and how you find fulfillment. So it's like, all right, I'm kind of starting to hook up with girls. I'm roaming the world. I'm making good money, but man, none of this stuff is bringing fulfillment. Like, is there more to life, God? And because I'd grown up as a preacher's kid, I'd seen this realm of religious people that didn't really have life, an abundant life, and they weren't real. They weren't real men. They were really passive. They were khaki wearing, kind of weak and follow all the rules. And it just kind of turned me off. But I said, you know what, God, if there's more to you than what I'm experiencing, I'll give it a shot, because I've got to be the kind of person that's all in. I can't do this half and half thing. I can't play it safe anymore. So I ended up making a decision to like really give God a full shot in my life. Heard the scripture, Deuteronomy 4:29. If you seek me with everything you have, 100% effort, that's what coaches require. If you seek me with everything you have, that's where you'll find me. And so I was like, you know what? I do things, I can get by with 70, 60, 50% and still do okay. But I want to do something that challenges everything. So I made that switch. I saw God move in my life in really powerful ways. And one thing that popped up maybe 6 months later was this show called Ninja Warrior. Never heard of it before, but when I saw it, a friend sent me a text message and said, dude, this thing is for you. And I saw it. I was like, yes. It like jumped in my spirit. I see this guy from Houston. His name's Sam San. He's like a Cambodian refugee. He'd migrated over here. Eventually, through his story, he got on this TV show because they had Ninja Warrior in Japan where it originated. And so he'd always been a fan of it. He did well, and that motivated me. So I reached out to him. And here's the key piece that I can see the link. In our lives, we find ourselves at a certain place, and we can think as men, hey, I could do that on my own. I can make this journey of progression on my own. I don't need help. And then we get stuck, but we're too prideful or isolated to realize that we just need to reach out to someone and let them pull us forward. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? Instead of me trying to build myself up more as an athlete like I've done in the past, let me reach out to someone who's further ahead of me and align myself with them. And that's what I'm doing right now with Steve Weatherford. But at that time, I grabbed hold of this guy named Sam San, jumped into his Ninja Warrior gym, and started being pushed. I got pushed way harder than I could push myself. And that was the first time I had like a coach. And I grew a lot from that. Applied for the TV show. They called me and they said, hey, thanks for applying. We're not going to accept you this year. And they hung up on me. That was kind of frustrating and heartbreaking. But I'd remembered the walk-on attempt I made for football several years before. And I was like, you know what? I gave it up at that point. I had a setback. I had something that I needed to overcome with this injury, and I let it beat me. So this time, you know what? I'm not giving up. I'm giving everything I have. And if I don't make it with that full effort, then okay. But I'm not going to feel good about myself if I don't really give everything I've got at this point. So I went through what they call the walk-on process, ended up camping out for like a week where the course was being built, get in and end up running the course, do pretty well, but I placed 33rd that night out of the 120 competitors. So you had to be in the top 30 to move on. So I didn't get to move on. That was heartbreaking in a lot of ways, but I doubled down the next year, reapplied, got my brother. I got two brothers. They're younger than me. One was in the military. He's jacked and shredded. He looks like a mini Arnold. And he joined in with me. So in the application process, they called me again. They're like, hey, we saw your application. Is your brother in the pool? Is he interested? And I was like, yeah, he's there. They're like, cool. We're going to accept him and not you. I was like, what the? Come on, man. So they picked my brother instead of me. And, all this time I'm continuing to work. I'm preparing. I go support him. I test the course. And then in another regional, I walk on again. I camp out for 2 weeks to make this thing happen. And I got an opportunity. And I compete again in that regional. And I end up placing about 33rd again. Don't make it all the way through. So it's like, frick, man, I'm putting a lot of effort. I've progressed myself as an athlete. I'm 6 foot, 180 pounds, 8% body fat at this point. Not focusing on the output of what I look like, but just really aligning myself with training programs where people that are better than me were having success. So I was continuing to grow there and also experiencing these challenges, both the obstacles that were setting me back, but then the failure and learning how to respond, and also learning. God taught me it's not so much about the failure as it is the process. And I began learning that failure doesn't define me, but it can empower me if I learn something from this. Third year of applying, I'm living in Africa at the time. My company sends me overseas. I just broken up with my serious girlfriend. Thought I was going to marry her, but didn't quite have peace in my heart. As we go through this breakup process, like 2 months later, she ends up dating a member of my favorite band, who I somehow introduced him to by taking her to a concert. She was a reporter. She interviews them. They end up dating after that, gets married. And it's like, stab in my heart of my favorite band is now like tainted because my ex-girlfriend is now married to them. So part of that frustration and many other things in my life, I accept this international assignment, go to Africa. And through that, I'm still training, but I'm on my own. So I'm kind of isolated again, but that gives me more time to really double down and prepare. Ninja Warrior calls me the third time. I get accepted, come back, compete, crush the regional qualifying round, hit one of those buzzers like you see people do on TV, feel this like wave of thankfulness and emotion and excitement. And it kind of made that journey worth it. And then the next day we compete, I get through the regional finals, make it to the national finals in Las Vegas. And I'm prepping the night before to be on the big stage. Now we're in the playoffs, now it's real. And only a few people have made it this far. And the night before, I'm practicing on this trampoline and I tweak my ankle and break it and tear a ligament. And so I get like this hairline fracture, a torn ligament. I'm devastated. It's like all these things. I finally made a breakthrough. I'm 30. I just turned 30. I'm 30 years old. Finally had a breakthrough. And now it's being taken away from me. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to walk away from this yet. So I got people praying for me. I got a doctor in there. We decide, hey, wrap it, ice it, see what you can do. Not recommended to run with a hairline fracture and a partially torn ligament. I had a grade 3 ankle sprain. I bandage and wrap this thing up, splint it, put a shoe on, and I don't tell any of the producers or team doctors. And I go run that course at the national finals.
Wow.
Deciding, you know what? I may never get back here again. And if I don't leave everything on the line, then I'm gonna regret it. Now, that's not my advice for everyone because medically that's not the best thing. But I made a determination in my mind, like I am going to give everything until a doctor, until someone rules me out. I'm not going to look back and say, frick, what if, because I've had too many of those regrets. And so I developed that mindset. Nothing is taking me out. It doesn't matter what happens to me. I'm going to give everything I have until I can't stop fighting. So I ran the course and I end up falling on the first obstacle. Actually, I get DQ'd on the first obstacle. I make it through. I like one hop my leg through this weird beginning obstacle. It was all balance and footwork. And if I had made it through there, I think I could have finished the course, physically capable of that. But I fail. Everyone's like, oh, Nate, you suck. Not knowing that I had massive pain in a fractured foot. But I let it go away because the winner of the show from the year before fallen on the same obstacle with me. And he taught me how to respond to that setback. So this story is about adversity, overcoming it, then setback through injury, and then deciding that's not going to define me and I'm not stopping, persevering forward. That's relevant because when I got this trophy back here.
Yeah.
I got some serious injuries that happened on the 8 months of filming that show. But that finally got the breakout in 2016, got on another show called Team Ninja Warrior, had a lot of success there. Me and my teammates, Daniel Gill and Barclay Stockett, who are world-class athletes, we were making a run to the finals, and we're racing people on these courses. And we get to the final event with the other team. So we're in the Super Bowl, basically. Mm-hmm. And I make a fall as I collide with a competitor, tear my shoulder out of socket. I'm taken out. We lose the match. We lose the overall championship. We lose the money. And I'm out again for 6 months. So another injury, another frustration. But learning to rehab, learning to come back and handle those situations really built up my mindset. And so I had moved off to Norway as the next work assignment, start traveling a lot more. That's when I mentioned going up to the North Pole.
Yeah.
Having some cool experiences. God's teaching me things through the process, but I'm continuing to just make steady gains as an athlete around other people when I can or on my own, and just setting metrics. And I'm not a systems guy, even though I'm an engineer. I just like excitement. And when it's boring to me, it's so hard for me to stay focused. So I try to keep myself accountable by telling people what I'm doing and having outside people influencing me.
Yeah, dude, that's great, man. One thing that, I really picked out of really that entire story was the value of people in your life. One thing you said when you were in college, you kind of had that kind of eye-opening moment where you realize, like, I'm not going to do this here on my own. But then it seems like once graduating and kind of getting some of that early on material success, like, was that when you kind of started to take things back and kind of thinking like, Nate's got this? I know that was the case for me. Like, I had some early financial success, like in my very early 20s. I mean, 21, 22, like I was making more money than I had seen anybody in my family ever make. And you give a young kid, like, with an ego and pride, like, dude, like you're making more money than you've ever seen your family make. Like, I was like, I got this. I don't need anybody. And it was 14 years of me trying to run my life all by myself until God came and like knocked me down multiple times. But there's parts of my story with getting around the right type of people. Steve talks a lot about, the right people, the right place, the right time, the right things happen. That was a big theme with our episode. I'm sure he shared that with you as well, and the work that you guys are doing. Like, my life changed once I saw some of these godly men, how they were living, how they were building their families, how they were focused on service first, and the financial success came there. So was there a moment kind of in your early kind of career success that pulled you out of that? Because it seemed like you had that, being around the right people in college, and then you had to find it again later on. So do you think that was kind of the thing, was like you just saw a little bit of early wins for you?
In college, the first breakthrough I had was getting around a group of men who basically said, hey, here's my real struggle. It's porn. And this is what's paralyzing me and taking away my ability to be my authentic self. And when they spoke and with transparency spoke out what they were dealing with, that gave me the freedom to share as well. For the first time in my life, I saw a man that I looked up to, that was powerful, that was cool and authentic, share what he struggled with and share how he'd had not only struggle, but breakthrough. Dude, that brought so much freedom and peace for me. And that's what Steve is for so many people. And that's what I aspire to become, is being real, authentic, and raw, and people can connect with that struggle. So that was a breakthrough through other men that I was around in college. Now, fast forward to 2 years into my professional career in Houston, Texas, and things are going great financially and relationally, and in the excitement I had. But with that, I didn't have peace. And so I was around some men who were kind of challenging that, like, what are you living for? And I saw one guy that was the epitome of success in our company, but he had kind of a failing family. And when he retired, he passed away. Just a random thing happened. It wasn't even a random car wreck. Dude just died, and he was a healthy guy. And I remember him telling me things like, hey man, work through your career, focus on this. Then you can go do the things you want to do. Then you can go have impact. Then you can go be this, and then you can go travel. Do the career first. Pay your dues there. Build up the 401k. He had like $4 million saved up. And he passed away. And I saw that theme happen time and time again. And I'm like, man, what am I living for here? Because I'm trying to grab hold of this long-term safety success, and then I'm going to do what God's put in my heart. And I realized that's the time when I got to walk away from this and say, no, I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. So yes, make wise decisions, but no, don't say, I'll do what I really find important in 10 years or 20 years or next week or next month. No, time to do it is now. So that's when I said, I had that come to Jesus moment I mentioned before. And then I said, you know what, God, I'll walk away from this. I'll throw this career away. I'll go be a missionary in Africa in a mud hut, which sounds freaking terrible. But I don't care what it is. I've got to do something with more purpose. And that's when God shifted my mind, pulled me out. I decided to leave a lot of the old environments I was in, the mindsets, the music. I loved rap and hip hop and country and R&B and rock. But all these things, man, they taint your mind. They program your mind in a certain way. So I detoxed myself from those environments, from my old friend groups. I walked away, which is hard for me because I'm a very loyal person. But I got myself around a few key men that just spoke life into me and gave me action steps of how to continue to improve. And that's where I saw Ninja Warrior pop in. That's where I saw success be redefined. So then I continued progressing in the career path, but it was from a different place. It's like, I don't need or want money to find fulfillment. I don't need or want validation from like a career achievement. I just want to do what God puts on my heart. And when I'm seeing that life come from it and I'm seeing it bring life to other people, that's what invigorates me. So that's where that progression has been. And it's always come from accepting some of the men God's put in my life and allowing them to speak into me. And when I'm transparent and just say, here's my struggle. I want to act like I've got it all together, but I really don't. And if I can be vulnerable in that and just say, help me, man, it allows God to use those people to help me and pull me forward. But whenever I project, I know what I'm doing. I got it together. Because there is that trip of like, when you have some success, you do feel like confidence. Some confidence is good, but then it becomes this cockiness of like, I know what I'm doing. I'm good, man. And I want you to think that I'm good. And so then I won't be real and raw. And that's my struggle as a preacher's kid. I've learned you're supposed to appear the right way because that's how you are, because you're the preacher's kid and you got to look like you got it together. And so being raw and transparent, that's what gives me breakthrough. And that's what's led to some of these leveling up places where I'm like, I'm more connected to my purpose and using my gifts.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That story about your former coworker, man, like that brought chills throughout my entire body. And it took me to, I have one of the guys that runs the men's group at the church that I attend. So I'm seeing him weekly. We're connecting all the time. He's got this thing. Anytime you run into Sam, what's going on, brother? How you doing? Greatest day of my life. Greatest day of my life is his response. And I've stolen it. And if Sam, you're listening, I want you to know, like, I give you credit every time I use this. But when I see people for the first time, like, hey, Frank, what's going on? Greatest day of my life. They're like, wait, what? Explain this to me. Like, it kind of like pulls them in. And if you really stop and think about it, like, yesterday is gone. So that's not the greatest day. And tomorrow is never promised. I think the meaning here, the point I'm trying to get to is, don't work, grind to hope for the retirement 30 years down the road when you're 65. Live in the present moment. I shared this quote like a year ago on my Instagram. Presence is the ultimate flow state. When you're living and operating from a place of existing in the present moment, there's no greater sense of flow that I've ever experienced. And I've tapped into some creative states of flow. I mean, with writing and developing and creating projects, like I know what it feels like to work from that place. But when I am existing, like it's just me and Nate, like there's nothing else going on in this world. I'm present in this and I'm running from flow. So dude, that was so powerful, and then you talked about like, just being the openness and vulnerability. Like, that's what I try to be here for men throughout the world, like, with you, like Nate, he's a public figure. He's got this massive following online. He is reaching people all over the world. Like, why did you feel the need, because you could have kept your vulnerabilities. Like, you could have had backdoor conversations with men about your own insecurities and that kind of been how you process and work through it. But I know I told you this was really how I found you a couple months ago, was one of your posts where you were sharing the fight the new drug. So my question is, like, got a great looking dude here. He's got the world really, at his fingertips. He's aligned with his purpose. He's aligned with what, God is trying to do in his life. Like, where did the want to share your struggles with pornography with the world come from?
Man, it wasn't it was a hard decision and it wasn't easy to do. It took a lot of intentionality. And as I got back to the core of what has God created me to be and trying to be more introspective and analyze it. And as a man, for me, I tend to not really think about my thoughts, my feelings, and my emotions. I just want to go do. And I felt God remind me, man, I've given you a voice. I've created you to impact people. And as I begin to believe that and see the realm of my influence and my sphere of influence grow, I wanted to give back. I mean, you hear guys just like The Rock and others say, hey, give back as you grow up and as you level up. And I thought, what would that look back like for me? What was the biggest thing that wounded me, that caused me insecurity, that caused me struggle? Man, it was my addiction to porn and my shame connected to that, and my inability to tell people because I was worried about what they thought. But I look at guys like you. I didn't know you at the time, but I look at guys who were willing to be vulnerable and express what was going on in their life and say how they either were through it or they were believing to get through it. And that made me realize that, and I now have that same voice. I can do that. There's boys watching, there's men watching, there's kids, there's women, there's desperate women, wives who are so desperate to see breakthrough in their husband because their marriage is being destroyed. Man, in 2016, I shared my testimony with a few of my friends that had followed me to Ninja Warrior and were in my support crowd. I had like 40 people in the crowd, like one of the biggest crowds they'd ever had on Ninja Warrior. And they all just decided to come. I didn't even invite them. And that gave me the spotlight on an episode. So we're driving home and I'm thanking them for being there. And they asked me, what's your story, Nate? And I ended up telling them my story on pornography and struggle and breakthrough and where God freed me. And dude, both of these women began weeping. They both lost their marriages because the men they were married to refused to battle the addiction of porn and how it destroyed their marriage. And they both said, it's not possible to beat it. So just accept me for who I am. And that shifted something in my mind, because when these women are crying, saying, Nate, I've never met a guy who has shared his story with porn in a way that he's overcome it. So now I know it's possible, because my ex-husband had convinced me that it's not possible to break through. That triggered something in me saying, man, I've got to get over the fear of sharing this because I'm ashamed to talk about it. I don't want to be known as some porn guy. I'm in a high performance corporate world with like CEOs and executives. I don't want to be the guy saying, hey, have you seen this dude's YouTube video talking about porn? Like, that was a career ruiner for me. But because a few years before I had decided I will walk away from this job if that's what God calls me to do, then now I don't need this thing. I don't need this job. I don't need this status. So I'm willing to speak truth. And it's been a journey, because I can say that from confidence now, but man, it's hard. Like making that post. I made a post on Facebook, on Instagram and Twitter, talking about porn, the harmful side effects of it, and some of its impact on my life. And man, it got huge traction, but I was so scared to do that. But it was just like step by step, I'm exposing myself a little more. I'm seeing people share how it was impacting their life, just like other people's lives that impacted mine. And that's fueled my fire to say, yes, I will step out. And that was part of me leaving my corporate gig to say, you know what? I don't want something silencing my voice. I want to be able to jump on a podcast or a Zoom with you and share this story, instead of being like, oh man, when one of my executive guys sees this, he's going to say, Nate, we can't have you in our public image and branding anymore because you're out here talking about controversial subjects. And that's not appropriate in the boardroom. I'm like, screw that. I want to see breakthrough in people's lives, and I don't want to be held back and suppressed. So I'm going to rearrange my life to be able to do that. That's what I've done. And that's where he blessed that decision and that leap of faith. And that's another thing we can talk about. Like, I left a high paying corporate gig with a lot of security and awesome perks and first class flights around the world with nothing set up. And
brother, I definitely want to get there, because it was the same for me. I had been an entrepreneur since 2012, 2013. So I never, I didn't know, it's been a long time since I've had to report to somebody. But in 2019, a part of my, major kind of testimony in my transformation was I took a job working as a entrepreneur, I guess is probably the best way to really explain it. So I was like entrepreneurial mindset inside of a company. Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
But it was a great paying career, or a great paying job with massive upside. I mean, we were building a marketing agency really from scratch with the intent to exit, 3 to 5 years down the road. We're just going to have a 7-figure payout. But I knew as this podcast was growing and God was telling me, like, there's something beyond this marketing stuff for you. Like, these men that are listening to your podcast need you more. They need more access to you. Just once a week is not enough. They need you daily. They need to be able to plug into you. They need you to walk this walk with them. So I launched a coaching program just over a year ago. In the first month or two, I was trying to balance too. I was trying to balance, a 60 plus hour career with the agency, building a sales force, and then the podcast, and then the coaching. And then it came to a point where I was like, I got to leave this. I got to leave 6 figures here and focus on what I can be doing. And I struggled for a couple months, just to kind of keep the lights on. But every month, like, God showed up, like just enough. And that took me through a couple months. So So how was that for you with exiting, like you said, I mean, first class travel, these corporate boardrooms, like what the world kind of tells us, like this is what you dream for in success. How were you able to, remain, faithful in those moments? Like what were you leaning into? How were you processing as you were going through that transition?
Man, great question. I can reference back to that point where 2 years into my career, I had some success, but I started seeing that's not fulfilling me. And I can look 10, 20, and 30 years ahead and see other people like me that they're not fulfilled and they're still seeking more to find that. So when I decided I will walk away, that gave me the peace to say, okay, everything after this is kind of bonus. So let me enjoy it, but also be willing to step away. And man, I came from very little trailer home, working on a farm for $4 an hour in a lot of ways. So I'm like, I could live lean if I have to. I don't have to have that fear mentality of what if I lose this job? So having the fear removed from stepping away gave me more freedom to be who I wanted to be and who I felt called to be. And as I progressed in this mindset of God, I just saw God give me these little reminders that, hey, there's more to your life. You're not giving yourself. You're in this introverted, scared place where you're playing it safe in this job, and there's more to you to give. And he would give me these opportunities, and Ninja Warrior was a parallel to that. I began to unlock new gifts, and part of being on Ninja Warrior isn't just being an athlete. You can't athleticism your way into the tryouts. It's an audition, and you have to have personality and a story and interest. It's the same in any realm we do and we find success. You can't just be the technical person that knows how to make an electronic piece or device work. To grow, you also have to have communication ability and skill, and you've got to channel your passion, your story to connect with other people. So that's the same for Ninja Warrior. You have to have these multiple segments and pieces of your life. And so I started seeing how I am still playing it safe in this corporate side. It's not giving me the output or the opportunity to speak into people's lives. So I've got to make an exit strategy and see what God does. And so I began planning and working, and eventually I got the best gig I could ever get in the corporation that I wanted. This sweet, high-paying expat role in Norway, a cush assignment, beauty, excitement. But when I got that, I felt like God just gave it to me to remind me that you're never going to find the purpose you're really looking for here. You've got to leave. And so I got the culmination of everything I thought would be what I wanted in the corporate side of things. And it wasn't the fulfillment. It wasn't using the gifts that God had placed in me. And so I knew that's confirmation. If this is the best that it can be, and I'm still like almost miserable here with great people, with great opportunity, then that's a good indicator that let me give that job to someone who really wants it and deserves it and desires it. And that's more in line with their purpose. And let me go do something else. I don't know what it is yet. I got to take a leap of faith to find out. So I made a financial plan. I started building up things on the side, some side hustles, speaking a little more. Ninja Warrior, when I did decide to walk away for my sixth season, when I walked away from my job, my sixth season of Ninja Warrior, I got accepted. It had been 2 years since that first injury, 2 years of making it to the regional finals, but missing the national finals by one spot. So I'm this close. And like, man, so I'm considering giving up. But the 6th year, I decided, you know what? I'm going to give everything I've got. I'm not going to walk away without laying it all on the line again. And I'd had 2 prior injuries, the season before and the season before. So I'm still continuing to persevere through those things. And hopefully that's a reminder for someone who's thought about giving up and they're like, man, it's just not worth it. Well, it can be if you feel like it's aligned with your purpose. And so I persevered, got accepted, got on, started a leave of absence with my company, which was a exit strategy. Mm-hmm. And with my corporation, once you do that, they know you're leaving and they wipe you off the future plans. So I essentially quit. I get back to Ninja Warrior. I end up hitting successfully in that regional, in the best regional up in Seattle, Washington, with all the other top competitors and former winners, placed within one spot to qualify for the next night. End up placing 10 out of, you had to be in the top 10 to make it to nationals. So I placed in the top 10, barely got it. I'm fighting. Fly back to Africa to wrap up a few things and go on a mission trip that I was a part of. Come back straight to Las Vegas for the national finals the next day, so I'm jet lagged and everything, but hit the ground running on the first round, which is where I failed 3 years before with that broken foot. Blazed through the course, ended up being one of the top finishers there that night. Had a huge win and celebration. So it was like all these prior years of work and struggle and frustration and failure and rejection. Boom, it hit. Now I'm kind of at the top, and I'm seeing the chance to win this whole thing. Now there's great competitors there, so it wasn't guaranteed. But go back to sleep that early the next morning. Wake up an hour later, massive food poisoning, puking my guts up, diarrhea, thought I had malaria because I'd just come back from Africa, can't get out of bed. And you have to compete again in 6 hours for the next round. You know, and there's $1 million on the line to win this show. Wow. And I've left my job. I got nothing else. You know, I'm kind of all in on this, but I know that it's not realistic for me to win. So that wasn't my plan of like quit my job and win the show. But this is the thing I've been building towards for 6 years. Go back, have some people lay hands on me, pray for me. They bring me over to the course in a golf cart, stick an IV in me. I get where I could do a pull up for a warm up. And I'm like, all right, well, if it ends right here, if I trip off the starting platform, so be it. Again, I will not let a sickness, an injury, something else stop me from giving everything I have. So I was like, God, I'm just going to go for it here. Had some cool God moments, end up, boom, making it through the one obstacle, then another obstacle, then another. And there's a countdown happening. And I'm on the second to last obstacle. And we got 30 seconds left. And I'm so gassed, I can barely stand up. But get through it. Felt like I had angels holding me up on these obstacles. If I'm being serious, you can watch the video. You'll be like, how is that guy still going? Get to the last one, power through, lift up this gate underwater, jump up, and I see the buzzer. I see the timer counting down 3, 2, 1, and I dive over and hit the buzzer, make it, finish the thing. And it was like incredible, victory and excitement of 6 years of persevering and training and being in a world-class mindset, but never seeing the result and going, am I doing things right? Is it worth it? And it was kind of like a culmination of, it was worth it. And God will move on your behalf when you take leaps of faith. And I declared and stated so many places of faith and belief that God was still going to use these situations, the good and the bad, for his glory and for my good and to impact other people's lives. And dude, it came to fruition after 6 years. And that's what launched the door for my job was over. I was gone, but this news TV show popped up out of nowhere. And that was like another launch point. And good money in the show and incredible influence and impact.
Yeah, we definitely want to get to the more current stuff with this recent show. But, one of the things that really stood out to me was you're talking about these gifts that you had been given. Growing up 6 foot, 130 pounds in high school, you probably didn't feel like you were like blessed as an athlete. But then you said when you kind of got into some of the strength training and the heavy stuff in college, you're like, oh, actually, maybe I do have some of this genetic kind of predisposition for the athletes. And now as the warrior thinking like, okay, God, like you've given me this, like use me. And it's because you were so clear, like that you knew that these gifts that you were given was to elevate you, to give you a platform to where you could really reach and impact so many people. That's where you were able to really lean on that. In those moments when you're sick and you're injured, you're like, I'm not giving up because I know this is why I'm here. A couple episodes back, I did the 5 questions you need to ask yourself to discover your purpose. And I put emphasis on that discover word because I do think we all created with very unique gifts and talents. And it's our job here on earth to discover those and then use them to serve and make other people's lives better. And I think when we live and operate, which you are at this point in your life now, you're operating from that place where you know what your purpose is. And you know that the purpose is to improve and enhance and elevate other people's in their lives. So I think the message here for a lot of people is, go back and listen to the 5 questions you need to ask to discover your purpose if you haven't listened to that episode yet. But when you get so clear on what you're creating, on what you're doing, and you're partnered with the right person in creating this life for yourself, then the sickness, the hardness, the feeling of I got to work through this, but it's so difficult. You actually have enough to get through it. You'll be able to tap into inside of you the energy, the drive, whatever it's going to need to keep you moving down that path. So I think that's an incredibly powerful part of what you shared. They're just kind of my insight or perspective on what you said. Let's get into this Exatlón. Because like I was sharing with you before recording here is I only give myself, maybe 60 minutes of TV daily. Not even every day do I do it, but it's typically between 7 and 8 p.m. I'll throw it on, cooking dinner and whatnot. And it was on Telemundo on Monday evening that I'm just kind of scanning the channels and I see, oh, this is the show that Nate is on. So tell the audience, what is Exatlón. Correct me for my improper pronunciation, but tell the audience what that is, how it differs a little bit from the American Ninja Warrior. And then I got some questions I want to ask you about kind of your experience on the show.
Gracias, mi amigo. Tienes excelente español. You got great Spanish.
Real quick, it's funny because I was recognized in high school. I graduated in 2002. I mean, I'm getting up there a little bit. But I was recognized in 10th grade by the National Spanish Honor Society. They actually gave me like a thing to wear during my graduation, received a big plaque and everything. I basically was really good at passing tests in high school because I learned zero Spanish and I just knew how to answer questions properly. But yeah,
it was also because of that mustache you got,
Oh yeah, they knew that they knew Frank was going to have
That's right.
the mustache in 2021. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, what is Exatlón? Tell the audience a little bit about it.
Yeah, Exatlón is now the #1 rated TV show on Telemundo, and it is a combination of Ninja Warrior, Spartan racing meets Survivor. If the older people in here know Survivor, the TV show, one of the original reality TV shows where you're put through a series of really extreme challenges and events where you're living in hardship and starving of sorts and making it work. And you're also on a team and someone gets eliminated every week. So this show was very athletic based, but it's a reality TV show. It ended up filming for 26 weeks every single day. I didn't know that when I signed up for it. No cell phone, no TV, no internet, no outside source or connection. You're on a team. I was on the team Famous or Famosos, 10 of us, 5 men and 5 women with strong athletic backgrounds, World Cup soccer players, MMA title holders, boxers, Olympic gymnasts, all these, strong athletes. And I was the Ninja Warrior. So I had more of a obstacle mindset and background. Yeah. And the other team was the Contenders or Contendientes. And they were up and coming athletes who were extremely gifted and strong, but they hadn't made it on TV. They're not really nationally known. So they're basically the challengers against the well-knowns. And it was a format. Every day you're competing, sometimes as simple as where you're going to stay that week, either in a cabin, which is a shack out in the woods, sleeping on a wood floor, no air condition. This is in the Dominican Republic, by the way. No air condition, on a yoga mat without a pillow, centipedes and tarantulas crawling around, 10 of us living in this shack. There's an outhouse in the back. If you win that battle for where you stay for the week, you go to the mansion and you got a chef cooking for you. You got a bed, you got a few other options. And with that, we had other things where we were eliminated at the end of the week or facing elimination battle. So it's kind of a contest of we're being paid to be there. We have a chance to win an SUV in the week, a $5,000 or $10,000 cash prize. And the end prize, or the goal in the end, is you win the $200,000 grand prize for being the final person who has made it through all the eliminations. And now the hook is, as you said, this is on Telemundo. So it's in Spanish. And if you can tell, I'm the gringo. Yo no hablo español antes de Exatlón. I didn't speak any Spanish, but thankfully I had a roommate who helped me prep a little bit. So I learned like 25 words before I went down there. So it was a new thing for me, but it was way outside of my comfort zone. At the same time, I was like, you know what? I've freed myself up for a new adventure and for God to move in my life. Like, what's that going to look like? So let me take a risk here. And somehow it was a stretch for me to get on as the outsider who didn't speak Spanish, but they opened the door. Essentially, some of my backstory was I'd lived in Norway. And I looked like a Viking. I had a big beard at the time, and I had this success on Ninja Warrior. Also, the overcoming obstacles, adversity challenge of the sickness, the injuries, and persevering through those, that resonated with the producers because they're like, man, so many people get hurt. So many people quit. They can't handle the mind games that happen here. This isn't a 1-week competition. Was supposed to be 15 weeks. It ended up being 26 because of COVID, but it's a daily grind. You're isolated from everyone else, and there's no coping mechanisms. There's no cookies. There's no porn. There's no TV. There's no call your family. There's no check-ins. You're isolated and you're having to grind and compete every single day. And so I heard about that. I'm like, sign me up. And actually, I didn't know how bad it was going to be because if I had, I probably wouldn't have done it. But
yeah. Now there's kind of a real world component to it as well, right? Like you guys are
MTV's the challenge. That's probably a similar dynamic.
So you have young, fit, attractive people all in a home together. And you've openly, kind of shared on other episodes that you talked a little bit about kind of, you lost your way, in college in your early 20s, but you're kind of back now in, with Rob. I know his whole thing is waiting. I know you've kind of express this as well. So was that a difficult thing to deal with? How were you viewed by others in the house? Was there a challenge with people kind of, I got to imagine, that long you're with people, there's going to be that. So was that difficult for you and how were you able to kind of navigate through that?
Yeah. Great question. The one thing I had going for me was that this was Latin America. And so almost everyone had a cultural background of being raised Catholic.
Okay.
So they have some familiarity with like God and religion. So when I essentially made myself out to be the Christian and the guy who's living by certain moral standards and living by certain convictions. It wasn't shied away from or frowned upon heavily. Like even when I would state certain things that I lived or believed on the show, they didn't make me out to be the guy that they're going to bash and make fun of, at least as a show production mindset. Because I look at other things where believers go on these reality TV shows and they just get slammed. Some of them are already a little kooky or weird, like the actual person, because maybe they were homeschooled the whole time, and shout out to homeschoolers. But it's for me, it was a struggle of, I've been growing step by step in my faith, in declaring what God's done in my life, and having these private convictions that I'm living out behind the scenes, but I'm not always stating them publicly. And I desired to really live out Romans 1:16 and not be ashamed of the gospel, to live boldly in all things that I'm doing. And I thought, if I'm taking these leaps of faith that I've decided to leave my job and I want to be more all in, I've got to continue to take action on that. So it was a daily battle of like, all right, God, I want to not only live by example and live with my convictions privately, I want to be public about it. But I really developed a good friendship and relationship with everybody on the team. I led in a way of, I served. Man, I found every opportunity I could to bring value to my team, to sacrifice myself. And there's a chance you get eliminated every week. And so I would take on some of the risk of like, they're like, I don't want to compete right now today against that guy because he's going to beat me and I'm going to get eliminated. That's what everyone in our team would say. And I'd say, I'll go. He's probably going to beat me. I'll volunteer. Even though I needed this thing, I needed the win. I needed to stay in. I was getting paid. I needed the promotion. You don't get any influence in audience and following unless you made it basically to the finals. I'm like, I need this, but you know what? Let me apply Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God, his way of doing things. Everything else will fall in place. So I just grabbed hold of scriptures, and for the first time, not for the first time, but for like the first really public way, I'm like, I'm going to live this fully. So I would just serve other people as best I could. And I would also challenge my teammates who were, 2.5, 3 million follower Instagram, like super social, well-known people. And I'm like, I'm speaking and calling them out for things in a loving way, but like, dude, that's not acceptable. What are you thinking? Like, and normally my people pleasing self would say, just fit in, just do what they want. And as things developed, I had some beautiful women on there that, from what everyone would tell me, dude, there's a Pocahontas complex. Like, they love this show. And, some Latina women love the gringo guys. And so I fit the stereotype, and I was fun and likable. And I had a lot of things happen where I'm like, I'm not going to go down this path because that doesn't lead with intentionality. So no, I'm not going to allow any relationship thing to happen here. Yes, I'm going to state my beliefs on why I'm not having sex until I get married, whereas I had in the past, but I'm living in a new place. And they're like, are you crazy, dude? What is wrong with you? But I developed enough character and discipline on the show and performed well where they're like, all right, I respect this guy because he's killing it. So whatever he's doing, like, maybe I'll listen. And as I got better and better, and God blessed it, God blessed so many things. Like, as a team, one time, through, it would look like luck, we won $50,000, and it never happened before on the show, through a sequence of picking the right numbers on this board. It's hard to explain, but everyone's like, how in the world did that happen? And I had prayed before. Dude, I was walking around praying for like 20 minutes, praying in tongues, asking God, be here and manifest yourself through the results that we have, so that they can't deny that God is here and that I'm following what you're calling me to do. And it happened. And from that point on, everyone's like, Nate, he's like connected to God on WhatsApp. And so they would listen to me. And I continued to use that influence and speak into their life, and then declare things when I got interviews and when I got put on and when I won this SUV. And they're like, that was impossible, Nate. How did you do that? And I'm like, I think God is using these reminders here in these situations to show that he has a message he's trying to tell people. And they would air it. They would go with it. And then God would bring more, and more things happen. And then these injuries that happened. I broke my foot and somehow came back from it and didn't get eliminated. I partially tore my Achilles and somehow just kept going. And everyone's like, what is going on? So these stories continue to build where I could be my authentic self. Now, discerning the environment, not always walking around saying Jesus and God and Bible verse, blah, 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 but just knowing, hey, let me sprinkle some truth in here. Let me sprinkle a little salt in here. Let me sprinkle a little light from time to time, but let me connect, man. I was real. Let me also be myself and have fun. And I'm mooning some of the other competitors because my buddy Fernando loved to do that. And like, I'm being a kid and being goofy, but I'm being real. And at the same time, there's times when I put my foot down and say, no, thanks. That's not what I stand for. And I'm not going to not going to do that.
Yeah, but that's really our job, as Christian, and men of influence, or, men in any type of leadership position or whatever, it's something that I saw play itself out in my life. And, this is what led me to really being open to accept the invitation when Jesus came. Like I was prepared because I'd been around the right type of men. So where I'm getting at is, like, we should always show up in every situation in a little bit different of a way, to where we're not shoveling things down people's throat. Like you said, you weren't, you weren't Bible slapping verses all over people, but you were operating in a place where it was something slightly different about Nate, to where they just said, oh, what makes Nate a little bit different? So they're kind of open to where you then kind of share it with you. I love that they're like, oh, Nate's got God on WhatsApp. Like, you're like, no, brother, I got a direct line, but I'll show you guys how to do that. Dude, this has been amazing. I truly feel like I could talk to you for hours. If you don't mind, I want to ask you a couple, questions about Nate, and then we'll kind of bring it home here with our few final questions that we have with every show. So, your profile, your Instagram, it's kind of like, this has kind of become, I guess, kind of how you're building your brand around, is this no limits Nate. So what does living a life no limits mean to Nate? And, what is one piece of advice that you can pass along to the audience if they're looking to step into a life of no limits?
That's good. Sometimes it feels hard for me to say that, no limits, Nate, but it's something that I declare as a personal statement. And the difference between limits and boundaries and guardrails are key pieces that we need in our life. So it's not that I throw everything to the wind and ignore it, but I realize that there are limitations placed on us through false belief, through situations we've experienced in life, and we bump our heads against those, and then it makes us give up. And I've realized that there is no limit you can't break through. There's no barrier that you can't overcome, or situation you can't overcome. And I've shared a few of those things in my life as we've talked through this story. And as I had the belief that it was possible to get through it, I've seen God do incredible things. And so a mission statement I have is that I want to live my life with the belief in showcasing that there is no limit to what God can and will do through a life that's fully submitted to him. And when I've done that, I've seen that God's broken off limitations and barriers in my life in so many areas. So I seek to continue to challenge myself and push myself with that mindset of, don't accept this limitation that's happening. Don't accept this financial limitation, this poverty mindset. Don't accept the lies that I'm told that I can't impact people, or that I'm too introverted or scared to speak, or that I'm too worried about what people think to share my truth. Like, don't accept that limitation. And then I look at guys like you and others who they've done the same thing in their life, with different personalities and different backgrounds and different struggles. They haven't allowed limitations placed on them to hold them back. So I'm like, everything can be broken through. And so I just keep declaring that, like, I'm going big, even though it's hard. I'm going to keep stepping out and having faith. And dude, I'm building a brand right now, but I don't fully know what it is. And I don't have full clarity and vision on what I'm doing and what God's calling me to, but I'm seeking to still take action as best I can, day in and day out. And sometimes I'm depressed and I don't want to do anything. Sometimes I'm confused and I don't know where I'm going, but I choose just keep taking a step bit by bit and trying to get myself back in the root of the word of God every day. And as I get peace and guidance from the Spirit, I take another step and take an action. So there's no limit with the Spirit of God in you.
God, I love that. Love that.
Things.
Love that. And I feel it's so, it's so parallel with, with the mission here, with the Superhuman Life. I feel like you and I are walking so closely, like in the same direction. It's very similar places in life as well. I'm excited about, the future. What I think this is kind of just the beginning of a real powerful relationship between you and I. You talked about the depression there. So obviously, a lot of our audience, a lot of our men here are struggling with, some habits and behaviors. And we know that, it's that addiction or that behavior that can lead to feelings of depression or feelings of not enough. So do you have any words of advice or, anything that's worked for you, like real kind of actionable step, like when you're having one of those days where it's just like, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm a little depressed. Like, I got so much going on, but I don't have all the answers. Like, what's that piece of advice that we could give to anybody, man or woman, that's hearing this and it's like they're just feeling down, in life right now?
Man, I was never the person that felt like I struggled with depression. And up until recent points in my life, the past 2 or 3 years, I've had bouts where I get in this funk and I'm like, man, I have no motivation. I don't desire to do anything. it was really hard for me to keep my commitments or to put myself out there to take risks. So I now can really connect and resonate with people who have struggled with things, and they find themselves going back into these spirals and using coping mechanisms and staying stuck. So one thing that really helps me is accepting and saying, it's okay to slow down a little bit. It's okay to have highs and lows. You have a big win and then there's a crash afterwards. It's okay. Don't freak out if I get into that space. Give myself some grace there. But also, as long as I stay aligned with people and don't isolate myself too much and try to just get out there. Like, man, right when I got out of this show, I'd been so unplugged for so long, and I'd poured myself out spiritually and emotionally and physically for so long. I was so drained. I came out and I kind of went into depression of just, man, I just don't want to do anything. But I realized if I can get myself around someone who has some life and some energy and some vision right now, they can help pull me out of the mud, intentionally or unintentionally. So I used, in a lot of ways, like every bit of my energy and mustered it up and got myself plugged in with Steve Weatherford, because I knew a big truck like that can pull my vehicle out of the mud, and he can help yank me forward just if I'm hearing his voice and being around him. He doesn't have to speak directly to me. And so for the guys and the girls out there that kind of struggle, especially if you're introverted and then you just want to be isolated, just use your energy to get yourself around one or two people at a church, at your work environment, in a hobby. Do something that you enjoy, man. I used to have to I still give myself permission to like have fun from time to time. So get around those people. You'll feel that spiritual energy. You'll feel that vigor, that life. They'll speak life into you. They'll encourage you, and boom, all of a sudden you're back alive and you're ready to roll. But don't allow the enemy to speak those lies of like, hey, this is just how it is, how you are, and just go find that little comfort zone, sit back in it, and then that downward spiral of porn or whatever triggers people deal with, those things become more tempting. It's like, maybe alcohol is the outlet right now. Don't accept those lies. You got to believe they're lies and keep building in those good habits that build like boundaries. I say no limits, but I have strong boundaries. Strong boundaries in all parts of my life. What I look at, who I talk to, what I listen to, strong boundaries. Keep those things up. And then when you're weak, you got those boundaries to bump into that kind of keep me guided, keep me going down the path.
Yeah, it's powerful. And I mean, just listening to your entire story, the impact that people have had, we talked about, I shot an entire video months back, with this pandemic and, us being isolated, like addiction feeds itself in these isolated moments. Like when when you're struggling, like that's the moment, pick up your phone, like even being in a lockdown, whatever your situation is, whatever state, country, wherever you're hearing this at, like don't allow, a lockdown, don't allow a quarantine, don't allow a pandemic to keep you from getting connected. There's places, there's a cell phone, there's WhatsApp, reach out to God on WhatsApp, get plugged into one of our Facebook communities, reach out to Nate. I know Nate probably gets a lot of DMs. I'm sure he replies to as many as he possibly can, myself as well. The world we live in, there's no reason not to be connected with individuals, with people. So that is so powerful, brother. So we have one final question. We're going to bring it home here in a second. But before you do that, Nate, I want to give you a chance to plug anything that you're working on. Where can people find you if they enjoyed what they heard here today, they want to learn more about what Nate's got going on now and in the future? What's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, everyone can find me on most social media platforms at No Limits Nate. So between Instagram and Facebook, Instagram is where I'm a little more active, and I'm diving into adventures. I'm heading to Costa Rica in 2 days. Just got back from San Diego and Denver. Right now, man, I feel like I have a little bit of freedom, and I'm going to use that. I try to be all in on whatever season I'm at. So right now, it's me being single. I don't have a family, which I want. I don't have a wife, which I want, but I don't have a job commitment, which I don't really want. But I'm maximizing where I'm at in this season, and so I'm out doing things and trying new places. If you guys are motivated by seeing someone step out of their comfort zone and try to push forward in life and figure it out, man, I don't have the fullest vision. I got a pretty clear idea where I'm going, but social media is where I'm trying to share some of that. And my challenge to myself is to be more open, do things like this. And I don't have a product that I offer. It's more about, here's the journey I've been on. And I want to see you guys and you girls find life and find it abundantly. And I'm seeking to do that. And that's the journey I'm starting to document. So it's a new process for me because I come from an engineering world where you don't talk about or show anything. You just grind at your desk. So I'm stepping into that new space. I appreciate you allowing me to share some of this story with your audience and the group that you've built up and you've fostered and you've encouraged. And I honor you for that because I know you're impacting people The ones you see, man, it's always 10x or 100x of what's actually happening. So these seeds that are being sown, I know that they're going to come to fruition in a lot of powerful ways. I'm honored to be on this with you, with your audience. I'm honored to hopefully build a friendship and see what's next. And we'll see what comes from it,
Absolutely, man. Like I said, we're in such similar seasons. I came, a big part of my story here just in the last, 8 months or so is I was in a very serious relationship. We thought that was the one. Like there were parts of that relationship that really led me here because it was I needed to change because I needed to change for her early on. It's grown and evolved since then, but didn't work out the way that we tried to force it to work out. So here I am, like a new mission in life, very aligned with my purpose in the world right now. But I'm single. There are hopes and dreams for that wife and family down the road. I know God will provide that when it's ready. But I just shared this with a friend of mine yesterday. Like I'm thinking about kind of going nomad later this year and just hitting the road, me and Bentley, taking the car and just seeing whatever parts of the country we want to. So I might be making a swing through Houston there. But I'm going to be excited. I'm going to be obviously following all the content that you're putting out there because it's going to force me. One thing I probably struggle with a lot from sharing my life socially is I want to put like informative, valuable content. So I don't share a lot of like what happens in my life behind the scenes. So I'm going to maybe be picking your brain of how you just kind of find or get through that fear of just opening up, the personal stuff. So yeah, we'll get all your social media stuff plugged down there below. Guys, Nate is an incredible follow on Instagram. So make sure you get plugged in there. So as always, Nate, we have one last question we'd like to end the show here with. Obviously, the title is The Superhuman Life. I shared pieces of the story and the testimony that led us to here. But ultimately, the title it's not like living, like there's not a formula for living a superhuman life. For me, it's about kind of a belief system or a perspective on how and why you're doing things. I shared with you, I kind of lived a life, worldly life, trying to do things all on my own for 35 years. Had some success, had some bodybuilding, some fitness stuff, had some financial success, had some business success, but it was never fully fulfilling. It was never all that I, was dreaming that it could be. It wasn't until I fully aligned with the right partner and I got clear on what my purpose was and then live my life intentionally on creating that purpose out to serve other people. So that's what I think about when I talk about living a superhuman life. But bringing it home here to Nate, as we do with every single guest to end the show, how would No Limits Nate define living a superhuman life?
Whew. That's a strong question. Well, I'm grateful to be now connected to your content, but I don't know what your message in your life has been before this point. But for me, living a life with no limits is saying yes and having the freedom to live with uncertainty and say, okay, whatever pops into my life, instead of overanalyzing it, I just try to say yes. Like, okay, one more step. Yes, God, I'll do this. So it's kind of a motto of I say yes, period, to whatever God brings in my spirit. And if it's scary, if it's uncertain, if it causes me anxiety, it's probably more of where I need to be stepping. And if I keep those people around me like you that say, dude, suck it up, step into it, let's go. That's what brings life. And that's where I've seen God do abundant things. That's where I get to apply that all-in mentality. And so the age-old stereotype, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I am not the type that enjoys getting out of my comfort zone. And I'm 35 in a few weeks, and I'm still finding ways where I'm so uncomfortable and I'm so afraid, but I will still continue. And I'll make that declaration here to step out in faith, to speak things, to align myself with the right people, and then say, guys, watch the journey because God will do incredible things. And this trophy over here is the testament of some incredible situations. Romans 8:28, God works all things together for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And 6 years of having just things happen to me that's like, how can anything good come from this? And it eventually did. That's the promise from God. So I think if you grab some of those promises and live by them, you'll see something powerful and unlimited happen in your life. Let's go.
Powerful, brother. Powerful. Full surrender. Full surrender. And freedom is on the other side. God bless you, brother. I love you so much. Guys, this was an episode jam-packed with value. Make sure you follow Nate. Get plugged in here. Get connected in the community. No limits. Never give up. It's never too late. God bless you all. We'll see you next week.